Hey guys, I'm super excited to show you all the cool new features of Photoshop 2021. We will take a deep dive at neural filters, sky replacement, pattern preview, live shapes, and so much more. If you are interested to check out specific features, just use the chapters in the progress bar or the time codes in the description. Artificial intelligence and machine learning has been part of Photoshop for a while, but with the new neural filters, it reached a completely different level. And it has to be the coolest update in the 2021 version. You will find the feature within the filter menu, so there's neural filters. And if you are working with an image where there is a recognizable face or person, it's automatically going to indicate that with a blue rectangle. It can also recognize multiple faces if you have more people in the same shot. And all the filters you will find on the right side. So by default, you will only see two, skin smoothing and style transfer. But here in the beta filters, you will be able to download additional ones. And there's even features that are not currently available, but you can indicate your interest by simply clicking on this button and maybe even add some additional comments. What would you like that feature to be able to do? But let's focus on the currently available options, starting with skin smoothing. Once we turn that on, I will zoom a little bit closer so we can see the update. And we can toggle the preview here at the bottom. That was before and this is after. There's two options, blur and smoothness. It does quite a good job. So if we increase blur, it's going to just be even softer, the skin. But then we can also reduce it and then we will see a little bit more of the original texture. So once again, it does a really good job in my opinion. But this is probably the least exciting one out of all of them, because as we get into the beta filters, it just gets more crazy. First of all, we have the Smart Portrait option, which has loads of settings. First, let me show you the aging option. So we can increase or decrease the age by simply using this option here. So if I drag it all the way to the right and zoom out a bit, we just have to wait for it to process. So it always says the filter is processing the image data in the cloud. So it's using the machine learning algorithm and analyzing lots of other images that are similar to this. And based on that, it's going to create an estimate, which we can see here. Let's just have a look at before and after. We can even increase the facial age further. Once again, that was before and after. But let's try it the other way around. If I drag it all the way to the left, we should get an even younger face than the original, which in combination with the skin smoothing might be a little bit over the top. But again, we can see before and after. And here on this little blue dot, we can see all the applied filters. So it's very quick and easy to just turn off maybe skin smoothing and just have the Smart Portrait de-aging effect. So once again, you can see before and after. But there are other crazy things here, like hair thickness. Let's see what happens if we increase that. We will get a lot of volume on the hair. Once again, this was before and after. And not only the hair, but even the eyebrows get thicker, as you can see before and after. But this is where things get even more spooky. Let's just say we want her to look in a different direction. We can change the gaze. Maybe let's turn the eyes towards the right of the frame or to the left. So once again, now that was before, this is after. There are a lot of changes here already. I will just temporarily turn off the gaze option and instead I'll show you the head direction, which is even crazier. Let's say we want her to turn more towards the left or turn to the right. Or instead, maybe we just want to change the light direction. So I'm going to again drag that all the way to the left first, which creates again a very realistic effect. And it's probably easier to tell if I turn off both the facial age and the hair thickness. So we go back to the original image where we will only see the light direction change. And now we can drag it to the other side. So we had it on the left side. Now we will have the light source from the right side. Once again, this was before, this is after. And then we haven't even played around with expressions. Let's just say we want to make her slightly more angry. Now you have to be careful with these features because they can sometimes create funny results. But let's see. Anger, okay, that was before and that is after. It's okay, a little bit strange. Obviously, if we go further, it can get sometimes weird, especially around the mouth. And the result really depends on the picture that you choose, so it's worth experimenting with it, but these are probably the least useful ones out of all of the other options within Smart Portrait. And with a little bit of time spent on tweaking and experimenting with the features I just showed you, you can see that we can create a quite convincing, realistic result. So just to compare, that was the original. So in this case, the expression, the age, the gaze, and the light direction has been adjusted. And if I'm happy with the result, I can choose to output it onto a new layer, set it up as a smart filter, which will keep it non-destructive, or also there's these other options that we can choose. But normally I would just go for smart filter, and I'll just show you what happens if I click on OK. The neural filter will be added here, which we can turn off, turn back on. And thanks to the smart filter mask, we can even mask things out. Let's say the eyes in this case. If I just paint over with black, we can bring back the original young eyes looking in the original direction. I'm not sure which one is spookier, so I will just actually go back to the updated version. And the good thing about having it set up as a smart filter is that we can always go back and make changes by double clicking on neural filters. We get back all the settings and we can continue playing around. Now, just below Smart Portrait, we have another filter called Makeup Transfer. Again, this is in beta mode, so it's probably going to get even better later on. But for now, let's just try it out by choosing a reference image. I have this strong makeup reference here, which we will load, and you will see it updating on our image. Once again, that was before and after. I think it does a really good job. Apart from a few mistakes around the lipsticks, I think we can refine that once again by having this set up as a smart filter. We click OK, and then we can refine it with the filter mask. So I'm again just using the brush tool with a soft edge and painting with black. I can remove those details and already it looks a little bit better. So once again, this was before and after. Moving on, the next filter is called Depth Aware Haze. And I'm going to turn this on for this image, and you will immediately see that it can create a really nice atmospheric effect, which we can increase further just so you can see it even better. So that was before and this is after. But it gets better once we start introducing warmth or color temperature. By increasing the warmth to the right, it's going to create a very nice sunset type of lighting, or we can make it cooler if we drag it to the left side. And it does a really good job at understanding the depth in the photograph, so anything closer to us like the shoulder doesn't change as much compared to things in the background, or even the arm, which is further away, gets more hazy. I like both versions, the cool tones or the warmer ones. Let's see what happens if I increase it all the way to the top, and maybe also the haze all the way to 100. So that's the maximum amount. Let's see without and with. And this is probably a little bit of an overkill in this case, so I would just reduce it somewhere around 75%, both values. With the next filter called Colorize, we can automatically add colors to monochrome or black and white images. And it looks quite subtle, but it actually does a really good job. Once again, this was before and after. We can also increase the amount of colors. So for example, if we want a little bit more yellow tones in the image, we can add that. We can maybe have a little bit less green in the image. And it's almost like adjusting the white balance, tweaking these 3 color slides. And we also have an option at the bottom, which I didn't really have much luck when I started changing. So it's usually just best to keep it in the middle. And last but not least, let me show you style transfer, where you can mix a reference image's style into your selected photograph. And you can see more of these artwork here on the right side. Let's just choose one of the other references. And again, it does a really cool effect. So it's more than the original filters that we used to have, which can stylize images. Here, once again, it relies on the Adobe Sensei machine learning to be able to combine these 2 images together. It is very hard to predict which reference image would work the best, but I also really like this one, which creates a really old vintage photograph or almost like a painting effect. And again, we can see before and after. It's quite a big difference. And there's loads of other reference images here from which you can choose. At the moment, you can't upload your own ones, but you can refine settings like the brush size. If we increase, it's going to get even more hazy or out of focus with this current effect that we are using. And we can also adjust the strength of the style, which is a good way of reducing the effect or increasing it even further. So neural filters are great fun to play around with. I'm not 100% sure how much I would use it for my professional work and for retouching and things like that. But in general, it can help you to create certain looks very quickly and easily. Again, relying on the advanced artificial intelligence called Adobe Sensei. Next up, we have sky replacement, which you can find both in the select menu as a new option to quickly select the sky in the image, which does quite a good job. But what's more cool is if you go to the edit menu and choose sky replacement. This actually is like a filter or a more advanced setting where you can pick up reference images and replace the original sky in the image. Now, this feature can do a lot more than just simply replacing the sky, because automatically it's going to make adjustments to the foreground as well. So let me show you, first of all the different sky options that we have here. So by default, we get a couple of different blue skies. So let's just pick the most default one, which doesn't have any clouds in it. Compared to that, we have more interesting cloud formations or even more dramatic blue skies like this one. Then we have sunsets in all kinds of different colors. So we have more orange tones here, then we have more the pink tones and beautiful cloud formations. And if this is not enough, you can also go into the spectacular category where you can get even more vivid and colorful results like this one, or more stormy clouds like this one. And the category called storm, I actually created myself. You can add new groups here or create folders and then bring in your own images that you can then use as presets. So just a few that I added, I'm going to show you. There's some thunderstorm and lightning. Let's just pick another one from this category with even more lightning bolts, or another dramatic sky from the same category. Now, if you feel like that the foreground's light source and the background doesn't match, you can also easily flip your sky around, and that already looks a little bit more realistic in this case. But as I said before, we can also adjust things like the temperature of our sky. We can make it cooler or warmer, and we can make it brighter or darker. And these adjustments were for the sky, but we can also make changes to the foreground. So if we want the foreground to be darker to match the sky, we just have to keep the lighting mode on multiply and increase the lighting adjustment. We can also increase the color adjustment to match more the colors of the sky. And if we want it to brighten up the foreground, we just have to switch to screen mode, which will immediately brighten up the image. But in this case, I will probably use a brighter sky in the background. When you accept the changes, you will get everything saved on a separate layer, so everything is completely non-destructive. We first of all have the sky with a mask, then we have the foreground lighting as well on a separate layer, and then an adjustment layer which handles the color changes of the foreground. Here is another example where we have a very bright sky with not much details on it visible, but if we replace it with a more dramatic sky like this, we already get something more interesting, but we can always play around with the adjustments here. Increasing the brightness a bit already makes it more realistic. We can also add more temperature just to make it more like a rising sun, maybe even further on the right. And then once again, we can see without and with the effect. Another cool thing that you can do is to move the sky around, so you can drag it up or down. You can also scale it up, and again, it will be easier to move it around. And there's even a brush with which you can refine the mask in case the automatic selection wasn't perfect. Once again, when we accepted the changes, we get all of these adjustments as separate layers, so everything is completely non-destructive. And just for fun, here's a last example, replacing the original sky with something more unique like this rainbow, or we can again go back into our storm category and get a cool lightning bolt to add some suspense to our composition. Before we continue, I just wanted to let you know about our creative membership program. For a small monthly fee, you get access to over 200 hours of Adobe certified online training courses. Master all the tools and skills needed to become a professional graphic designer or illustrator. As a pro member, you will get mentoring from me and my team, access to webinars, student forum, and creative briefs to help you build an outstanding portfolio. Pro members can also download the project files for all of our YouTube tutorials. Sign up at yesimadesigner.com/memberships and start your free trial today. And now, let's head back to the tutorial. Making selections of hair and refining edge got even smarter with this new update. So normally what I would do when I need to select someone is to go to the select menu and choose subject, which will already do a good job and estimating on the subject of the image. And then I would go into select and mask. Once this loads, we can switch between different views. I normally like to work with on white or on black, or also with the black and white or mask view. It's worth remembering the shortcuts. So I'm just going to switch to black and white by pressing K on the keyboard. Now, one of the new features that we have here is the Object Aware Refine mode, which if I switch to, you will see already creates a better result. So this was the previous algorithm, Color Aware, and this is the new one. So already picks up the hair details much better. But if you want to make it even better, you can also click on Refine Hair here on the top. And with that one, you again get an even nicer selection. So just to compare, this was the result that we get without these new additional features, and this is the even further refined hair selection. Similarly to other features, here at the bottom we can decide what we want this to be saved as, a selection or a layer mask or even a new document. I'm going to stick to layer mask and click OK. And let me show you how this feature works on another image, which has a little bit even more things going on in the background. So now I can just go to the select menu and maybe even start straight away with select and mask, where then I can choose the subject, which does an amazing job straight away. Then make sure that we have Object Aware here on the right and also refine hair. I'm going to show you how it looks on black and white. So that's how the mask is created. And immediately I can spot a couple of issues here. So if I switch back to maybe on white, we can zoom closer. And these can be very quickly fixed by using the object selection tool, with which we can just quickly select an area and add that to the selection. Maybe just have a larger area here. Also around the hand, I think we need to add that into the selection. So I find this selection method really impressive now with these new improvements, and the fact that we could get to a complicated mask like this in literally a couple of seconds is just really great. And I'm sure this is going to save a lot of time for most Photoshop users. Creating seamless and interesting patterns within Photoshop has never been really easy. It's much easier to use the pattern maker within Illustrator, but now thanks to the pattern view update, it got much easier to do here in Photoshop. So all we have to do is to go to the view menu and choose pattern preview. We can zoom out and we can already see this pattern that we created. And I'm going to just use the free transform tool and show you how cool it is. Really, we can even move this outside of the canvas and create overlaps between the tiles of this pattern. And of course, if you have multiple layers, you can work with all of them at the same time. So I can even just duplicate this one, maybe create a smaller version. Maybe we can even have this upside down and so on and so forth. Now, this feature can be even more useful when it comes to creating texture patterns, which has to be seamless for it to work. Like with this image here, normally what I would have done in the past is to make a selection of the whole thing by pressing Command or Control A and then go to the edit menu and choose define pattern. But I wouldn't really know how it's going to look like. There's of course a couple of workarounds to get this working, but now thanks to this feature, once again, view, pattern preview, I will be able to tell immediately what's wrong with the image. First of all, I can fix the lines by using Command or Control key and drag these lines around until I get them straight. Something like that. Maybe we can drag it out here just completely and create a result that's more straight on all of these black lines. But then we can also use the clone stamp tool and simply sample maybe from this section here and start painting over here on the top. And immediately I can see the transition is getting much better there. We can do the same thing here. I am going to just paint over it and create a nice transition between the top and the bottom details. Working with vector shapes in Photoshop has always been weak compared to what we can do in Illustrator, but with the improvements on how live shapes work in the 2021 version, now it got so much better. And first of all, let me show you that there is actually even a new tool called the triangle tool. And using this, I can show you what generally applies to all the other vector shape tools, that once you create a shape, you will be able to control all its values from the properties panel, even after you make transformations to them. One of the things with triangles that you can adjust is the corner radius, which you can access from this value here, or you can also use the corner widget just like in Illustrator and in InDesign. If you want to rotate a shape, you don't even have to use free transform. You can just go to the corners and do the rotation straight away. And you might recall that in previous versions, if you wanted to create a triangle, you actually had to use the polygon tool. Now we have a dedicated tool for triangles, but polygon tool is still there. And again, it has a lot of useful features from the properties panel. We can adjust the amount of corners, for instance. So if I want maybe a hexagon, I can just quickly update it to that. I can also very quickly turn this into a star by changing this ratio here. So this is all the way 100% when it turns back into a hexagon, and then we can turn it into a star very easily. And just like with the triangle, we also have the round corners option here. And just to show you, if I increase the size of this by dragging out the corner points and also maybe rotating it around a bit, all these settings in the properties panel are still accessible. We can very quickly flip the object horizontally or vertically. And we can also set the rotation back to 0 degrees, which will go back to the default way it was drawn. I like to also mention a big improvement for the line tool, which used to be created as a rectangle in the past to create the weight or thickness for it. But now finally, it's just defined by 2 single anchor points, which can easily be adjusted by just moving them around. Or again, similarly to the shapes, we can also rotate this around easily. And to increase the thickness, we can come here and adjust it much faster than it used to be in the previous versions. Since we are using a Photoshop Cloud document, I wanted to show you a very useful new addition called Version History, which is only available for Cloud documents. Here we can track the changes that were applied to this image, and we can see that the current version was saved very recently. But if I want, I can go back to an older version, and first it will just give me a preview here on the top. So I can switch between these two. Or if I save the document again, we will get another update here in the version history with those shapes that we added. So once again, I can switch between these two and scroll down, go back to the original version. And if I wanted to, I can even revert back to that version. Now, in case you want to compare the two versions to each other, you can even choose to open the original one in a new tab. So as you can see here, we have the original version and the new version with the shapes inside it. Although this might seem like a small update, but it actually makes a huge difference, that the actual size option from the view menu now finally gives us a physically accurate size. So this uses the resolution and the size of your monitor and calculates it based on that, the exact print size, based on the settings for the pixel dimensions and resolutions in the image size dialog box. So if I press Command or Control Alt I can go into image size and I can show you that this is meant to be an A4 size document with the current 300 ppi resolution. And the actual size view finally now gives me that exact A4 size on my screen. So it is very easy to see how large the final print size is going to be. Another long-awaited improvement is that finally we can reset the size of smart objects. So whenever you create a smart object, Photoshop is going to remember that size. So for example, with this lighthouse, if I'm going to make it smaller and maybe also rotate it around a bit, we can always go back to the original orientation and size by right-clicking on it here in the Layers panel and simply choose Reset Transform. It's not going to remember the position, just simply the size and orientation. So once again, we can try this with the balloon. I am going to increase the size of it and maybe also flip it around by going to the Edit menu, choose Transform, Flip Horizontal, and maybe move it here on the right side. Now, if I go into the Reset Transform option, it will reduce the size and also flip it back to the original orientation. So that was before and after the reset. In the 2020 version, we got a big update for all the presets like swatches, gradients, and patterns. It's much easier to work with them and use them. And now with the 2021 update, we also have syncing enabled for all the presets. This is something you can find in the preferences under General. There's the preset syncing automatically turned on. And what it means is that no matter which computer you are using, as long as you are logged in with the same Creative Cloud account, you will always have the same presets available. Another useful addition is within the Brushes panel. Now finally we have a search option. So if I'm looking for a specific brush like screen tones, I can just type it in and immediately I get them here in the filtered results. And since we are talking about brushes, it's worth mentioning, in case you are using Photoshop on the iPad, now you can synchronize all the brushes from the desktop version to be able to use them on the iPad. If you want to find out what are the new features for Photoshop on the iPad in the 2021 release, make sure you check out my separate video on that. The link is in the description below. If you are a veteran Photoshop user, you probably recognized a new menu item called Plugins, which is completely new, and we even have a separate panel for it. Here you can click on Discover Plugins, which will open up the Creative Cloud desktop app, where you can find featured plugins or all plugins, and you can install them. But most importantly, these will show up here in this panel, so it will be much easier to manage all the extensions in one place. And last but not least, we have a new, more intuitive help menu. If you use Ctrl or Command F, it will come up. It's called Discover. And here you can find tutorials, quick actions, user guides, plugins, and so on and so forth. For instance, if you're interested to find out all the content-aware options, you can just type that in. And the Discover panel will give us a list of all of these functions, including Content-Aware Tracing Tool, which is actually only in technology preview mode at the moment. So it's almost like a beta feature. By the way, these technology previews you can enable from the preferences. And as you can see, I have that option turned on. And when you turn this on, you just have to make sure you restart Photoshop. But once you've done that, you will be able to find the tool here in the toolbar. So that's Content-Aware Tracing Tool. And essentially, it's like the pen tool, but it's going to automatically find the edges of objects. You can see when I hover over on this area, immediately I can just add that whole path section, and then I can continue to add these additional lines and they will all be nicely connected. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this will still improve later on. And once it comes out officially, I'm going to show you how to utilize it. And that's all the new features for Photoshop 2021. I hope you found this review useful. And if you are interested to learn about the new features introduced for Illustrator, InDesign, or the other tools, make sure you check them out. There is a playlist on the channel where you can find all of these videos collected in one place. Thanks a lot for watching. Like and share this video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we release new videos. Click on the link on my right and start your membership today to get access to over 200 hours of training courses and personal mentoring by me and my team of creative professionals. Have fun learning, guys, and I will see you in the next one.